Hi everyone. In today's video, we will know about AWS Lambda and API gateways. So let's move on. Agenda. In this class, we will know about what is AWS Lambda, features of AWS Lambda, and what are the advantages and disadvantages of Lambda, API gateway and features, and also we will know the hands-on and how to deploy microservices in Lambda and how to create API gateways and using this API URL in test the Postman. Let's move on. What is AWS Lambda? So AWS Lambda is a serverless and without connecting any server we can run the Lambda function. So we will see AWS Lambda serverless compute functions are fully managed by the AWS where developer can run their code without worrying about any servers. And also these functions will allow you to run the code without provisioning or managing any services. So without any server, developers can easily run the code, and also there are no worry about their provisioning and or any other managing servers. And it's mostly used in the event driven application for the purpose of data processing and Amazon S3 buckets or responding to HTTP requests. So let's move to features. What are the features of AWS Lambda functions? That are auto scaling and high availability, serverless execution, paper use pricing, and support different programming languages, integrated with other AWS services, versioning and deployment, security and identity management. So one by one we will see what is auto scaling and high availability. AWS Lambda will make sure that your application was highly available to the end users and it's a sudden incoming traffic. The high availability can be achieved by scaling the applications. Serverless executions. There is no need for provisioning the server manually in AWS. I've already told that without server we can run. AWS Lambda will provision the underlying infrastructure based on the triggers you are mentioned. Whenever a new file uploaded to particular Lambda will automatically trigger and take care of the infrastructure. Next is paper use pricing. AWS will charge you only for the time the compute engine was active and the bill you based on the time taken to execute the code. The next is support different programming language. AWS Lambda functions support multiple languages. You can build function with the language at your convenience. For example, it supports Python, Node.js, Java, PowerShell, etc. The next is integrated with other AWS services. AWS Lambda can be integrated with different services like API gateway, DynamoDB S3, step functions like that. The next is versioning and deployment. AWS Lambda function will maintain the different kind of versions, the code by which you can change between the versions without any disruptions. Next, security and identity management. AWS Lambda will leverages identity and access management to control the access to function which is built by using the Lambda. It provides security like granted permission and policies to secure your functions. The next is advantages of AWS Lambda. Zero server management, scalability, event driven, automatic high availability, affordable, multiple languages, and secure. Zero server management means it automatically run the user code. There is no need for user to manage the server. You can upload it and run in the Lambda. Scalability. It can run codes in response to each trigger. So user application is automatically scaled. The codes run in parallel process. Event driven architecture. The Lambda function can be triggered based on the events happening in the AWS other services. Like when the file or video is added to S3 bucket, you can trigger the AWS Lambda function. Next is high availability. When there is high demand or high incoming traffic, AWS Lambda function will automatically scale the server, and it's affordable. AWS Lambda, one doesn't pay anything when code isn't running, so it's only pay for what we use. So it's affordable. And the next is multiple language. I have already told that it support multiple languages. Which one your convenience, you can use that, and it's a secure. The next is disadvantages. The disadvantages are time limit, vendor lock-in, latency while starting, control of infrastructure, and limited computing. Latency while starting means while AWS Lambda is going to be activated after a long gap, it will take some time to initialize the services, which is required to deploy the application at the time, and end user will face latency issues. The next is limited control of infrastructure. So behalf your Lambda function, it's going to take a underlining the infrastructure, so you will have very limited control. So very limited control in using the infrastructure. Next, time limit. AWS Lambda enforces a maximum execution time limit for functions, which is currently set to 15 minutes, and your function exceeds this time limit, it will be forcibly terminated. The next is vendor lock-in. Like if you want to execute the Lambda function, then you need to support any cloud provider. So as here we using the AWS because it's widely used in market. Otherwise you can use any cloud computing. Next is limited computing and memory option. Limited computing and memory and CPU configuration. So it's a predefined memory configuration was it's 122 MB to 120 GB, and memory configuration it's corresponding to the CPU power. The next, move to the API gateways. Amazon API gateway is fully managed by Amazon Web Services, that's AWS, which makes it easier to publish, maintain, monitor, and secure the API at any scale. And also API gateways is serverless. It support HTTP, WebSockets, and REST APIs. And also it acts as server between client application and backend services. So it's a serverless. The feature of Amazon API gateway, it's API creation and deployment, authorization and access control, traffic management, API versioning, secure, simple to use, scalable. API creation and deployment, it creating the types of APIs and also managing them, it will be very easy. Next is authorization and access control. With the help of IAM rules or IAM policies, you can custom authorize, you can achieve authorization and control the mechanism of API gateway. Next is traffic management. Traffic management means load balancing, throttling, and caching are the some of the services offered by API gateway. The next one is API versioning. API versioning is based on the request of your API gateway. The traffic to the and route traffic to appropriate version based on the client request. Then iSecure. API gateway offers several capabilities like custom authorization and IAM integration to help secure APIs and simple to use. It provides very simple UI to use the API gateway, which make it easy to maintain and monitoring the APIs. Next, scalable. So usually Amazon Web Services, AWS, maintain very high scalable API gateways. Then only they can handle the heavy demanding workloads. Then let's move on to the hands-on part. So here we can see how to deploy microservices in AWS and also how to create API and test in the Postman. So before deploying microservices Lambda, first we need go to specific folder wherever microservice is exist. This is my microservice exist here. Here go to command prompt. We need to write a command mbn clean package -caps p lambda package. This command helps to clean the old files and build your projects and get ready for the AWS Lambda. This command is create a zip file for deploy. So here we can see, wait for it building. Here we can see it build the zip file in your target folder. So go to your folder, go to target. Here we can see it builds the Lambda packages zip file. Then go to the AWS console or go to S3 bucket. So here we can search S3. Here we need to create a S3 bucket to upload the zip folder. So create bucket. Give the specific name because S3 bucket name must be unique with the global namespace. Microservices. So enable the bucket version. Create bucket. Yeah, and the name should be on here. AWS Lambda. Yeah, create bucket. So this is your bucket AWS Lambda. In this bucket, we need to upload the zip folder that's created. Right? So go to upload, add files. So we need to upload the zip folder which is created Lambda package. So this is one file. So here we need to upload identity as well as microservice file we need to upload. So it takes times to uploading. It successfully upload. So here we also need to upload the Lambda package of identity service also. Yeah, it's uploaded successful. So after uploading both the identity services and degree service Lambda folder, we go to create a Lambda function. Yeah. So let's go to the Lambda function. Lambda. In this Lambda, we need to create a function for both degree microservices. My microservice name is degree. So degree services and identity services. So here we give the function name. GTS degree. Here we need to select the runtime to write your function. So here I am selecting the Java 21. So create a function. So inside this function, here we need to upload the code source. So here there are two options to uploading. One is that zip or jar file or Amazon S3 location. So I am using the Amazon S3 location. We need to upload the file. So that's what we need to do is go to your S3 bucket. So that is your S3 AWS Lambda, it's my S3. Here go to your degree services. So copy this object URL and paste it here in the Lambda function. Save this. So it's uploaded and we need to edit the runtime settings. That is, we need to change the handler. Edit this. So what we need to change is go to your Visual Studio. Here you can go to your stream Lambda handler. So you need to change this one, GTS degree package. So copy this. Dot Along that we also add the class stream lambda handler. So we can change handler in with the package and also add the class name. So save this. So the next thing is what we need to do is here we can see the change. Is go to configuration, general configuration, we can edit. So here we increase the memory. So I will give you 1021. So it's a option to 10,240. So I'm going 1021 and timeout should be 15 minutes. So save this. Yeah, configuration should be changed, memory 1021 and timeout should be 15 minutes. The same thing, we need to create another lambda function for GTS identity services. Create function. So this one for identity. Create function. The same thing we need to do. So upload from Amazon S3, go to your S3 bucket, go to identity service, copy this URL, paste it here, save this. So later we need to change the handler. So we need to change identity for GTS identity services stream lambda handler. Save this. Go to configuration. Here we need to edit the memory. So I will give 1003 and timeout should be 15 minutes. Save this. So after creating lambda function, so we also need to create RDS. So I have already created the RDS function. So I've just started this one. So you have a database, you use that one, otherwise you need to create. So I'm using the old one, that is GTS Service Platform DB2 database. So you need to start that one. Later that you create a API gateway. So the API gateway I've already in this theory part I've already told that it support HTTP WebSocket REST API. So here I am using the REST API. So it helps to control over the request and responses along with the API management capabilities. So it helps to work with the Lambda, HTTP and AWS services. Go to build this one. So new API. So first we should see RDS is available or not. Now it's starting. So RDS is available. I'll create API gateway. So give API name GTS identity API. Create. Yeah, API is created. So here we need to create the resources. So for this, go to Visual Studio. So here we need to create this one, resources API v1 degree. This is for your microservices, that is degree microservices. So for identity services, you need to create frog postman add user. So you have to create this resources API v1 user email. Create resource API. Enable the course. Say cross origin resource sharing. It create an options method that allows all the origins, all methods and several common headers. Create resource. Again we need to create v1. Create resource. User. So once we check, it's a user. Enable the course. Create. So after creating the resources, we need to create a method for identity service. So we need to create the method. Your postman we can see. For identity services, there are three methods, that is put, post and get methods. So here we can see how to create a method. So first we show to create a method for post. The same thing should be creating put and get method. So select the method, that is post. Enable the Lambda proxy integration. It helps to send the request to your Lambda function to a structured event. So here I'm select the identity services because I'm creating Lambda function for identity service. Create a method. So after creating this method, we need to deploy the API. So here select new stage. The stage should be new dev deploy. So here stage is created. The same method should be follow for all the methods, that is put and get method. So here we need to copy this URL and go to postman. So here we need to change till day. Try to send this one. So enter accept. Okay. Here we go to API gateways. Go to the Lambda functions. So refresh this one. So API gateway is created. Go to triggers. So trigger is created. Here we can see details. The API endpoint is created for post method. Copy this URL, paste it in a GTS identity service, add user. Send this one. So it's showing the user email exists already. So we need to change the user email. Send this. Yeah, it's user registered successfully. So after adding the user, we go to the login user. So in this login user, also we need to create a method for put method. So go to API gateway, create the API method. So REST API, GTS identity put API, create API. So here also we need to create the resource for API v1 user login email. So go to resource, create resource, API, enable the cause, v1, user, login, email. So here we need to create a method for put. Select put method, enable the Lambda proxy. So it's for also identity service. Create a method. Deploy the API stage. Deploy. So it's created. Copy. Go to the Lambda function. Refresh this. Here we can see another API trigger is created for put method. Copy this. Go to Postman. Paste it in the login user. Send this one. Yeah. So here also we need to change user email. It's created successfully. Created the token. Copy this token. go to GTS identity service authorization. Here in the value we need to change this. Save this and go to GTS degree service local. Here also authorization in the value we need to change the token. Save. So the next thing what we need to do is to go to your microservice, that is degree microservice. So go to here, go to function, go to your microservice, that is GTS degree service. API gateway. In this degree service, that is microservice, that is GTS degree service is my microservice. In this we need to create a API gateway. So next we create a API method for post degree service, that's your microservice. Select test API build. New GTS degree API, create API. So here is we need to create the resources. API, create resource. Visual Studio, we need to check event degree. So here we need to create a method. So go to Postman. So create degree. So we need to create a post method. So create method. Select post. Choose degree service. Enable the Lambda. Create method. Next thing is we need to deploy the API. Choose new stage. Stage name as Dev. Deploy. Yeah. So go to Lambda function. Refresh the page. API gateway is created. So go to trigger. So here we can see trigger is created. So in the details degree API. So for post method, copy this URL. Go to Postman. Paste it here. Try to send this one. So it's showing a degree exists already. We need to change the degree name. Now send. Yeah. Oh, GTS degree added successfully. So we can create all the methods in this type. So we can create a get method, request, update request, delete request. For all this we need to create the same thing. So this is all about how to create Lambda functions and API gateway, and using this API URL how we can test the Postman here. So this is all about this video. Thank you.